guys, TinaGale here with my Scrappy Ideas, and welcome back to Focus on 6x6, where I'll be working with 6x6 paper pads and some embellishments and trying to stick primarily with just a background piece of paper and nothing but 6x6 paper pads. So for this layout, I have to confess this is going to be a scrap lift from a pin on one of my Pinterest boards, and it's from the 2Ps Refugees. And the artist listed says Alyssa103. So I admit up front, this was totally one that I had pinned on one of my Pinterest boards and absolutely loved the design of it. It's a very common design and one that I had planned on using with just quadrants of 6x6 pads. But I loved the way that she layered up on top of that and scattered her photos and got 3 photos on there. So I'm going to pretty much be lifting her layout. So I wanted to be sure to give her credit. So I hope you'll stick around, grab your 6x6 pads, and let's get scrapping. One of the most common ways to use 6x6 pads is to just have a quadrant set up. So I have cut these 4 sheets down just a little bit. I've matted them onto some patterned paper and then matted that onto some dark brown patterned paper. Then I'm going to take 2 more sheets. So for this layout, you're going to be creating or using up 6 sheets of your 6x6 pads. So that's really great. So I've debated back and forth between putting the red on top or red behind, and I like the red to separate the papers, but I have these photos and they're older photos and my husband's in red, so that's why I chose the red. I wanted to pull that in and really pop. So it could go this way. If you put the red next to your photos, that's going to really bring out the red in the photos as well, and I really like that. And I'm thinking this will be okay back here because it does have this distressing of color, and I'm going to actually cut that sheet apart so that I can pull some of it down below, and I've got this down here with some paint. So while normally I would probably put the red to the back, this time I'm going to choose to put it to the top because of the photos, and I really want those photos to pop off that page. And I have a lot of embellishments planned out, so it's going to cover up a lot of that red so that it's not quite so in your face. So let's go ahead. I'm going to cut this in half and get these put down. I've gotten everything adhered down behind the photos, and now I'm ready to start embellishing. For the embellishments, I pulled a lot of different products from my stash. Some of these are quite old and some of them are fairly new. The paper that I'm using is the Simple Story So Red collection, so it's probably about a year old maybe. But then I pulled out some Cocoa Vanilla and some really old October Afternoon, even older brads. I'm not sure, they're probably 4 or 5 years old. So a lot of different products. So if you want to know all the specific products, be sure to look over on my blog and I will list all of those out for you. So for the embellishments, like I said, I pulled a lot of different things out. I was just looking for colors, kind of the theme, and I knew I wanted to add something up to the top because I was going to have embellishments to the top left of the photos, kind of diagonally down to the bottom right. So I wanted to bring that third point of the triangle up to the top of the page. So I had some chipboard pieces, and so the yellow one is a chipboard piece, and so I just cut the U-Rock that was from the paper pad. So the 6x6 has all of these cut aparts and little squares scaled down, so you can cut those up for embellishments or punch them, and it just makes for really fun embellishment layers. So like I said, I've got some stickers, but most of this stuff is cut from the 6x6 paper pad. So that A Beautiful Life down there was one from an older 6x6 pad, and I just cut it out. This one was the same thing. It was a square from the 6x6 paper pad, and I thought about using it just the way that it was, but since all of the background is in squares, the photos are squares, I really wanted to bring in some embellishments that were a different shape. So I decided to cut out around that, and it was kind of a pinked edge. Of course, I didn't want to spend that much time, so I just cut it in a circle or close to that pinked edge and put that up on top of the layer, or on top of the photos there. So that's going to kind of create the grounding for this cluster. And then those 2 banners were chipboard pieces from an old Lily Bee set, and I decided that would be kind of fun. and I have this flare that says let's go. And so all of this is going to end up, as I work, I end up creating my title from it. And I didn't really have any intentions of that. I wasn't for sure what I was going to do for a title or what. And actually this one has several different phrases and things that could be considered titles. And during the process of creating this layout, a whole other story came to be. These are photos of my son when he was quite small, and he always liked hanging out with his dad outside and stuff. And so my husband had mowed the yard and he was finished. And so he had picked up my son and was just taking him around the yard, just letting him, you know, pretend steer and play and do all that. So it was just like they were playing, but yet all of these different times that my husband would take my son around and just include him in what he was doing, whether it was on a job site or at home, working around the house or whatever, really became learning moments for him. And I had these photos and stuff laid out on my desk, and my son had come over and we were talking, and he was talking about going through some certification of using this big heavy equipment on job sites, things that he had been using for a long time. Even as a young teenager, they had him using some of this heavy equipment and stuff because he just grew up around it. His dad had always taught him, and the men that my husband works around had always included him, and he just soaks up knowledge. And so he had learned all of this. And so they were, through regulations, they were having to do this certification, and they did one, and they're like, well, okay. They knew immediately, he knew what he was doing. And so then they just started asking him about the other equipment. He's like, well, I've been using it since I was like 14, and you do this, that, and whatever. And they just signed off on certification. And then they're like, we're just curious, how did you learn all of this? And he's like, because I just grew up doing it. It's just, you know, it was second nature, and you know, hung out with my dad. And so it was so funny to think about. I was just going to focus on the time that they were playing together, but yet he was learning all along. And I think that is really neat how when you think about your kids, and if you just include them in the everyday life and stuff, you don't have to have teaching moments. They just learn and they pick up. And so this is going to have quite a bit of journaling. I included just a small little tidbit at the bottom on the turquoise paper, but it's going to have quite a bit. On this photo on the far right, where I matted the photo, I placed it because there was this little printed part that says his story. I thought it would be fun to include some journaling from the perspective of my son looking back. So this layout will go into my albums in the year that the photos are, but I just thought it would be neat to have a looking back kind of journaling. So I will be putting that back there. So I hope you enjoyed a look at this week's 6x6 and the inspiration that I chose to kind of lift. And there are some still shots here that you can check out. And again, be sure to check out my blog for more details and more information. So thanks so much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, I would love to have you hit subscribe and the thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.